Going live. Go on the link and see if it works. Yeah, it does some transcoding probably. Go and watch myself.
Where is this live? On your channel?
On the group, yeah. No. Yeah, put it on. Blessar. Jú, þetta komið live á internetum. Hi. All right. So. Yeah. Góða kvöldið.
Sit down, please. All of you.
We're the brave ones that are not afraid of meeting in public yet. Hopefully we will all survive on this event. This is the second UX Nights meetup. And yeah, we put extra care into the live streaming tonight because there were like 15 people that said they were attending and 70 some people that are watching this from the quarantine. Yeah. And we have one current viewer. My name is Pétur, and I work at Nordic Medical as a product manager. And yeah, you are.
I'm Are, Norwegian originally, but I used to work in Lego before I moved here to Iceland. And I got to know Finner, and we figured out we are both interested in UX and design and how things work, and ask if things work or not. And yeah, we pretty go. But then we thought we could meet more people that are interested in the same things as we are.
It's not complicated, and formula is simple. It's 3 stories, 20 minutes pop, no slides allowed, and I think we're ready. Actually, there was one thing I forgot to say last time.
Yes.
It's a really good story about this place. Soon after it opened, there was a tour. It was like a science trip. And there was one thing that I hadn't noticed. So they took us around the place and talked about the design. It was essentially some theatrical designers, how do you call it? Leikmyndahönnuðir. You know what that is? Yeah. And they went to the States and they filled up some containers with used stuff. But one of the details that they decided on in the design was to have no branding. There's no advertising. There's no beer brand or anything. It's like when you walk around, if you compare it to every other pub you go to, it's not like "Ale's good" or screaming in your face beer brand something. It's something that I didn't realize until I noticed. It has a meaning to me. I like this place. But yeah, let's go. Berglind, you're gonna kick it off. You're gonna introduce yourself.
Don't drink Mexican beer.
Yeah. Hi guys. Let me.
Hi. I'm really happy to be here with you today. I do quite a lot of speaking like this, not in English, so I'm a bit nervous. But I realized one thing when I was preparing, that the slides I create, they're usually for myself, not for the audience. So that's like the biggest no-no of service design ever, that I realized I'm guilty of doing. I preach this to everybody I work with, like, why are the customers doing this? Do they need this or do you need this? If they don't need it, then they shouldn't do it. So I have to do some testing and figure out if it's just for me or if people also like it or stop it. Yeah, and it's also because I have this calculation model in my head. Every time I'm asked to do something like this, and people say, yeah, it's 20 minutes, and I think, yeah, it's 18 slides. If people say 7 minutes, it's 7 slides. If it's an hour, then it's 45 slides and a video. So when Phyllis had and no slides, I was like, but then I have no idea how I'm supposed to formulate this. It's super challenging. So I just created my slides and printed them out, and I have them. A little bit about myself. I'm a management consultant and a service designer. I struggle a little bit with titles because I'm actually an engineer, and I try not to tell people because when they hear engineer, they think about electricity and construction beams and stuff like that, and that's not at all what I do. But every job title I get, I always add service designer behind it. I've been an application specialist and a service designer, and I've been a project manager and a service designer, and now I'm a management consultant and a service designer. And it's not just because it sounds cool and people ask me about it, which I like, because I really like when people ask me about my work and I can have interesting conversation. But also because it's like the essence of what I stand for. Everything I do and want to do is to create value for the customer and the end user and try to provide the best services possible. So that's like, it doesn't matter if I'm working for a really big and cool software company or if I'm working for the Ministry of Finance, which I've also done. I'm always a service designer. Yeah, I wanted to start to tell you a story. I had a pretty strange day the other day. I was supposed to do a seminar in Eskifjörður. I woke up really early and went to the airport, Reykjavík airport, and when I was there, then the woman who hired me, she called, and she said, the weather's pretty bad, so maybe the flight will go back early, just so you know. Maybe it won't go at all, so if you need to be back at a particular time, then maybe we have to reschedule. And I was like, I have kids, nobody cares if I'm home. So I went, the plane went off, and as we started to fly, I could feel that my ears were getting really, really blocked, like more than usual. And I fly a lot, so I could feel that something was strange, and I thought, like, am I getting sick, or what's happening? When we had been in the air for about 30 minutes, and we were about halfway to Egilsstaðir, the pilot came on the plane and he said, there's something wrong with the plane. We had to turn around and go back. And I fly a lot, and I'm not really afraid of flying. But I started to think, should I be afraid? No, this is going to be okay. This is fine, probably, right? And then the flight attendant came and gave me chocolates. And I thought, okay, I'm going to die. He's trying to keep me calm while I die, that's for sure. But I didn't die, I'm here. So we landed and everything was fine. But I started thinking, like, this is service design. Somebody decided this when something is strange, let's give them chocolates. Let's put the text on it. Chocolate is always the answer. And I took this picture and I posted it on my Instagram and I asked, is chocolate always the answer? I was pretty surprised because about 67% of my friends, or those who answered, thought chocolate was the answer. But I can tell you I did not feel safe at all. I'm gonna switch back to the cat. But what's funny is that the next day, I actually sat in the company car, I closed the door, and the rear window exploded. And I drove with no window in the back to Toyota and had it replaced. And when I got back to pick up the car again, there was chocolate in the seats. So more people think the chocolate is the answer. And it was nice at Toyota. Then I was like, oh yeah, this is a nice surprise. But at the plane, it didn't work. So they probably didn't test this with a faulty plane, I'm pretty sure. But my reason for being here is to talk about testing. And I'm going to tell you a story about a case that I worked on when I lived in Sweden. I was working for a really big company, or it was a project I did for a really big company, where they had a software team, 25 people that was working on different tasks, and they had a really big problem with bugs. They didn't know how to handle the strain the bugs put on them, because they couldn't really know how to do it effectively. And they had tried different ways, but nobody really agreed on how to do it. And they couldn't just agree on how to do this. So we came in and we did some interviews and tried to figure out what was the problem and tried to figure out if maybe something else was the problem. And we actually figured out that one of the biggest problems was that the problem was untestable. They had tried different ways of working, but the different trials weren't imitable. They didn't have the same tasks to work on, the same bugs. They were different every time. So we decided that we needed to find a different way to test this. And I usually work with software or digital solutions. But when you're testing processes or services that you can't touch, and because when you're testing something digital, you just draw something up and you show it and you test it, and it's maybe hard to figure out the insights, but the testing itself is easy. But testing something intangible can be hard. And one of the biggest or most valuable insight we got from the interviews was that the one developer said that we can't create bugs, we can only wait for them to appear and then try to solve them. So we did like a how might testing, like how might we gather tangible insights when the product isn't tangible. And we tried to figure out how we could create a process that could test what they needed to be tested without actually using software. And the answer was Sudokus. We decided to try to imitate the process with something that was a little bit more predictable than code and bugs. And after some research, we decided to use Sudokus because they have actually a lot in common with code. They have logic. They're unique and challenging, but doable if you understand the logic behind it. But they are a lot more predictable in terms of the size and time spent. So you can. So we thought they were the perfect substitute in this case. We had two types of Sudokus. We had plain ones that represented the everyday tasks and the development work that the developers did, and then we had them in different categories like easy, challenging, and super hard. And then we also had Sudokus that we had filled out with errors, and those should represent the bugs. And this way we actually could test a lot of different scenarios. We could test, like everybody sat and worked on the plain Sudokus, and then we just threw at them bugs randomly, like work happens with most software companies, I think. We've divided up the group into bug testers and bug workers and plain workers, and made them only work on bugs and only work on the normal tasks. We created like a bug responsible role and rotated it between the team members. And we also tried to let the bug workers only work on easy tasks and only work on hard tasks between the bugs they solved, to figure out like what was the most effective ways of doing it. So this helped us because we could collect undisputable hard data on the best way to work, which was having maybe many people who have worked in the software industry. This is basic. I thought so, at least after I had done this, but the solution was what I thought was best. To have like bug responsible people working on easy tasks and then doing the bugs, because they took a lot less time getting into the old task again. Because that was kind of the biggest time factor, was the time after they solved the bugs and the time they got back up to speed in the plain work, or plain work as we call it in the project. And yeah, so at least I thought this was really fun to do something really different, and like it has nothing to do with code, but it helped us to solve a problem for developers. And the thing about tests is it isn't really about the test itself, it's about the insights you gather. And in my mind, I've divided these insights into 3 categories that I think more people maybe can use. It's things we can fix right away. It's things we know we need to fix, but we don't know how. And then things that I think are important, but I don't know why. So all the insights I create during my work, I divide into these 3 categories. Yeah, so I just encourage you all to try to use creative ways to test, to gather more valuable insights into your products, and to test, because I know many of us think it's a drag. And think about, like, why are you trying to test rather than just think about the interface itself, if I assume that most of you are working in UX. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, do you have any questions? Yeah?
Do you think, how do you find selling part of testing into shareholders or like stakeholders, like the management and everybody? Do you find it easy?
I think it's
Since you've been here
getting
in
easier.
Iceland and
Yeah.
you've been in Sweden, do you think there's a difference?
Yeah, definitely. In Sweden, it was a no-brainer. Like, everybody understood the importance of it. But that might also be because I was working at a really young company, people that had recently gone out of school and new. When I came back, I started to work for the Ministry of Finance. And it was challenging to make everybody there understand why we should spend time on testing and research, like in general. Definitely. But I think just during my year at the ministry, things got a lot better. Yeah.
Ask a question. When I get this like question with text, I ask, what quality do you want in your product?
Exactly.
It's like if you want a good hire a UX expert. If you want good quality, hire a quality expert. So it's just a question of what quality do you want in the product.
Exactly. And like, when do you want to know when something's wrong?
Yeah.
That's also the thing. Like, do you want to know it when you launched and people haven't used the product and it's a big disappointment, or beforehand? So that's a big selling point. Any more questions?
Are you the only service designer in the village?
Not the only one, but I'm one of the few. We actually have a network on Facebook if you want to join. Þjónusta hönnun á Íslandi. I'm a board member, I guess. There are not a lot of us, so, but I'm one of the founding members. So we're actually trying to get into hönnun instead. So service design will be a part of that, just like UX and graphic design.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you go from engineering into service?
I studied innovation engineering kind of in Gothenburg. So there was a lot of service design material there. Yeah.
Good.
Good. Thank you.
Björgvin from Jökulá.
Yes.
There's a UX.
There is there a lot of questions on the stream, or
I don't know. Am I in the sweet spot here? Or?
I don't know. We've never done. We have 2 concurrent. So they have like a 100% increase. So we'll just assume that they'll show up next with questions. Yeah.
Good.
Take it away.
Hello guys, my name is Björgvin. I'm a co-founder of Jökulá, which is a creative agency with a focus on user experience and UI design and all kinds of designs. Some people say that I'm a creative director, but I really don't know what I am. This industry has the most complex job titles. Like, has anyone tried to translate any of these titles to Icelandic? It's it's impossible. Product designer, UI UX designer, it doesn't make sense. So like it kind of comes down to being just a designer. But my point, I'm gonna take you through design path that we have been doing with Vörður Insurance Company, and I wanted to give you like an honest look into my working files. Hopefully some designers are going to relate with the chaos that's happening there. So I'm not, I'm hoping that I'm not the only one having chaotic working files. Therefore, I will be showing you some of the products and what they have been doing throughout the time. So basically, what we started out in that digital journey that they were going through was starting with creating a design system. Design system is basically a component design rules library, and it's really handy when it comes to when you are delivering a lot of digital products. So you need to be kind of like ready with these kind of designs. So it's going to save you time and money and just pure mental health when it comes to just delivering a lot of products. So what we started out with was kind of going through previous products that they have, digital products, and took a pattern inventory just to kind of make a point on the importance of design system. So we just went through all of the what they had, website, inner websites, undersides, subpages, everything, and kind of just defined like, try to just show the inconsistency. And the problem is not the designers behind this, the problem is the amount of the changing designers. There comes new agencies, new web developers, and that's underlines the importance of having a design system because it's just really easy to designers to jump in and just create something similar without, you know, one designer has this icon set, another has this, and then you have this gray tones, and it kind of just, and it kind of just shows in this inventory that, you know, like different nav bars, different colors, different styles of buttons, margins, paddings, all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's expensive for companies to go through the journey of creating a design system, but it has always saved money in the end, or at least I think so. So, and yeah, and not a pen, is that an English word? Yeah. I took the
Banners.
No, I tók það ákvörðun to not clean this up at all. So this is basically exactly how this is my working file. And the only thing I kind of did, I had to do, Birgitta, my coworker, she said, you have to schedule a little bit. So I kind of just scheduled my pages, so I know what I'm going into. So I'm just going to take you through, and just, if you have any questions, just shoot them at me. So, yeah, as you can see.
You want us to shoot the question when you are talking? Or
Yeah, it's supposed to be a...
Okay, so you want to have a conversation?
Yeah,
No.
definitely.
Because you were talking about the colors and
Yeah.
my interest is, who are you working with inside the company? How are you testing, deciding the colors, the buttons, what the button is, how are you doing the testing?
Yeah, so what basically I was set two rules. Do not change the logo and don't take out the color yellow. So I had to work from there. And the process, what we actually did, we took all the pattern inventory, and we agreed that we would present 3 ideas of ways that we wanted to, directions that we wanted to take it.
Your company wanted to pick.
Yeah. And it was, of course, we had a lot of meetings, presenting, going back and forth, and I will show you all of the presentation that I had and how it kind of develops through after each meeting, and what we wanted to do was to create 3 really different ideas. One that was kind of traditional, one crazy, and one just basically, it was a new brand. It was almost too close to another insurance agency or insurance company.
The people in the meetings, is that branding, marketing?
Yeah, it's basically marketing, and it's again, titles. It was just some people who took the choices. No, it was marketing director, which then and some executives and it kind of varied also, which there was always the marketing director at the time, which is now forstöðumaður, but
So how did you test?
How did we test
the site, the button and the color? How did you test it?
User tested?
Yeah.
Yeah, the user test is because when we didn't test just buttons, we tested it always with products. So because when you're designing a design system, it's really hard to just go on and create a button. You have to have some kind of example of environment for it, where it can be placed and so forth and so on. And of course, when we were basically the testing was creating mocks, but which then went on to being full-on user testing on a digital product. That's just how we tested it. We didn't test it specifically. Yeah, this is a button for you.
It was you didn't present it to the marketing department. I was just wondering how you were testing your ideas because you're coming into the company.
Yeah.
who are you talking, and you're just talking to the marketing department, or are you talking to everybody inside the company from
Yeah.
different departments, or is it just like the ones who have like bosses and the title?
No, a lot of staff was involved. We had like big, like demo meetings where we had like everybody could put in a pointer, and we had different people coming in, and it was like, yeah, it was a big amount of staff involved in the whole process. But of course, you know, there's like a group of small amount of people who kind of made the decisions. Of course, you know, like, and also along with us, you know, so it was kind of, it's like, it was really it has been a really nice process, because it's been a really cooperative work in terms of taking decision, trusting in each other, and actually taking, you know, feedback from the company and us. So and yeah, so there's just a lot of people involved. It's a big company. So this is basically the first thing I decided. It's literally just, it's missing actually some pictures. I'm trying to find some inspiration for colors. This is me trying to push them to expand their color palette. And this was never even presented to them. So this is yeah, it's missing a lot of pictures. Is it connected to the internet? Yeah, it's okay. It's basically just some random designs and pictures, which then went on. So this is one. Yeah, can I refresh this one? So yeah, and what also one of the things that we did in the beginning, we asked them, you know, like, what has inspired you in terms of digital design or UI or UX or website? What companies have inspired you, their designs, the look, feel, and everything like that? And kind of, I asked a lot of people in the company for this, and kind of tried to find the pattern of look and feel that they wanted to go. And this was kind of the mood board I presented to them at the meeting, and it kind of just right away, they liked it right away, because I kind of, you know, sensed what they were looking for. This kind of like sophistication, but still a little bit friendly, white space, you know, Apple. It was like Apple was always on top of everybody's mind when it came to design, to inspiration in this. And this led to starting to do some hacks, or I call it hacks. my working pages are also called hacks. It's basically me just dumping in some ideas. And I was actually looking at this out there. I was like, wow, what was I thinking? You know, like, it looks so bad, you know, like, it's like, I think this is like, you know, and yeah, but it's kind of nice to see, you know, the development of this, you know. I kind of didn't know what I was looking for, you know. It's like kind of like, it's kind of like sketching for me, you know. If like graphic designers, they sketch like ideas, and like I'm just like kind of can see like it's like nothing in ratio here, like, you know, like, and trying out different styles, and this is and you know, like, this is, you know, like I said earlier, you know, like, I kind of like, you kind of need an environment when you're designing a design system. It's so hard. It's not hard when you have an existing company that has good design, but when the company is actually planning on going full on digital force, changing everything digitally and rethink everything, you kind of have to start with a blank canvas. And in that, I was trying to like vision the canvas around it. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, so it kind of just throwing in some pictures and trying buttons, trying typography, and trying colors. It's like, it looks like Showa, but the fun thing there was like, oh no, not this, like it's like too blue, But the fun thing is actually, that this color actually ended in the design system. So, but yeah. And you can see like the styles I'm trying out different fonts, I'm trying out their font, and they're also kind of like defensive on both their colors and the font for some reason. And that's actually a pretty funny story for that. I will show you here in a bit. But you can kind of see this is kind of the first working file environment which I had. I move on to actually being serious about designs. I'm trying to actually create something that I wanted to present. So just trying out using existing elements, trying to figure out, roundness of buttons, shadows, colors. And at this point, I'm kind of, like, yeah, okay. I feel like I have something here to present. I have an inner page. I have a website. I'm working with, yeah, it's like, as you can see, it's like, each time I presented like a board like this. I had like, kind of like types of buttons, types of icons, types of illustrations, types of navigation, and just, yeah, exploring here colors. Then I went to another kind of like extreme version of it. Like I was trying to define some kind of an illustration style, trying green in this case. Like it's like there's like a color for every insurance company in Iceland. Everything is taken. But yeah, but these kind of like this kind of stuff was not taken well inside of Vörður. Yeah, here another illustration I'm trying to work with here. Then I started doing this kind of illustration style, and
So your company is designing the web page.
yeah,
So
only design.
I'm thinking more about, as a customer of Wordle,
Yeah.
were you upgrading the procedure of, as an employee, I'm going to document a agreement,
Yeah.
and if you want to send something, did you go on, or are you more in the front of the design, just of the look, or the procedure?
Yeah. This was basically only the first part of many in the whole digital journey transformation thing. And this is what we started off with, designing the looks and feel and colors and buttons and all that kind of stuff, which then we went into actually creating digital software, which we did our program. We have been working with other companies in that, but we were part of testing and actually creating user flows and yeah. So, but no programming, just working with other companies in that area. And I can show you also some actual products, finished products. And yeah, here's another yeah, I don't know what I'm like thinking here, like an empty circle. There's a toggle button here, like a toggle CTA. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, as I can see, this is as raw as you can find it. I really kind of like at this point, I was really into serif fonts. I don't know, like wanted to take them up to a really sophisticated level. Experiment with circles. Here at this point, I'm getting, basically just, this is a pain. I really wanted to go this direction. It's like, yeah, it's like, denied. Yeah. No, but they also really liked it. So they like, and so for some reason, like each time, it's like each time I presented something, like it was like I had this kind of mocks of a just website. It was not finished website. Everybody knew that it was not finished website at all. You know, like it was basically mocks. Just look at the colors, maybe the buttons. Each time, like, what about the footer? The footer, like we have to talk about the footer. You know, I'm like don't like, and you know, like I just in the end I just kind of just took out the footer. I had no footer at all. To like it was like because the meeting always like kind of went into like picking out the footer. You know, like it's like.
Did you do it often, like show demonstrate?
Actually, according to my working files, I had three kind of like big presentation. But of course, I had these kind of like back and forth smaller meetings. So and I can actually. This is the first. Like when this is not, I'm not cheating here. It's like Finnur told me that no slides. I'm like, damn. And but these are actual slides I had when I was presenting. This is the first meeting which we had. We were just showing three ideas that we, you know, and they had to kind of choose one of those ideas that we would take further. And start off mood board. This is the first idea, kind of just, you know, it's like I said, no final, at this point, no final designs. I'm just trying to help them see what I'm seeing. And I always had this kind of a combo of like a front page, inner page, and which I'd showed some mobile screens, with illustrations, and then this kind of like deck of the font, the icons, and so forth. Sorry. Oh, am I? Sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then there was some Suda, and then yeah, I'm just gonna kind of browse through this. As you can see, this is where we presented the blue color, which was kind of not approved in the palette at this point. But yeah, and then there was a third one here. It was like playing with more of a geometric fonts and circles and illustrations. Sans serif, serif font. And then I was also just showing difference. Am I out of time? Or what is the time?
You can have
I thought I was like,
a lot of
I was,
questions,
yeah.
right.
I was actually worried that I was talking too fast. But yeah, at this one meeting, he was like, yeah, we were talking like, and they were telling me like, why are you changing the font? Like, what is wrong with the font? I'm like, yeah, no, it's like, it's not, I'm not happy with your font. They're like, so, yeah, okay, and I showed them this picture. I said, which font is yours? And yeah, this font here. I'm like, no, this is your font. So he kind of like picked out the font I liked and I wanted to change into. And another thing was that all of their color palette was in white and yellow, which is just because there was a criteria also to have it accessible, ready, or
Accessibility standards.
yeah, accessibility standards, and basically failed. And this is what I was proposing. And just a quick one. And at this point, they kind of chose this way. So I'm developing this. This is the second meeting, I'm kind of developing this further. As you can see, I was not an expert in Figma at this time. It's like everything scaled up. Like, I was like, I actually presented this. I was like, something wrong with the screen or something like. Actually, this is my first project in Figma, so I, yeah, and it's actually getting really close to what it actually looks today. Let me see. Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll through this, show you that, so I can kind of. Yeah, this is just some. Yeah, this is then I was kind of like wrapping it together, making it look cool. I think this was in a bigger demo meeting showing different styles, and all of these are kind of like in the final version, showing some grids and mock screens and more kind of a components. This takes me to the final product of a design system, which we built up in Figma with components, and which is, for those who don't know, it simplifies our work and speeds up our workflow a lot, because we basically can just drag and drop components. So it just has logo, color palettes. As you can see, the blue and even purple is in their color palette now. Accessibility check on all of the colors, and do's and don'ts, and yeah, I'm not going to go like typography. It's actually a Google font called Barlow, which I edited a little bit. So it's like I fixed the percent. What is this called? Percent mark. Sorry. Okay, percent. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What he said. Processor, and yeah, I just changed the AM, and it was like kind of like a tiny little bit of adjustments. Buttons kind of have rules for everything. Hover, I always say Hoover. They're like, why are you calling this Hoover? And like for different kinds of like screen sizes and input forms and sizes. Layouting, kind of, and also, which is worth mentioning is that this is a kind of a live document, and it's like constantly updating, which we are working on a new website right now, and we have no elements of a website in there, or like a normal website, not any web page. Charts, illustrations. We kind of defined an illustration style, which we have been drawing. All kinds of. The newest one, I don't know if you've seen it, animation, but it's really cool.
The pictures above in the houses, is that helping with the people when they are using the site with the insurance? Is that this this kind of a house or?
Yeah, it's because the point, these four pictures define different levels of home protection. Therefore, home protection is like heimilisvernd 1, 2 through 4, and it's basically a level of that, is bigger houses. It's basically what we are trying to achieve. It's a nice balance between images and illustrations, and it's like in some cases it's supposed to like kind of help you understand what the product is about. But still, and then of course it's also just kind of making things look good, because like, of course the user, but then again, it kind of has to be fun, and this has kind of defined their brand. They have been using it a lot of social media, and it kind of just hormones. I'm like, don't remember anything in English.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
It's a question to maybe to you, Finnur, as well, and anyone else that is working with design systems. What's the difference between a design system and from a marketing work and a brand guide, where we define colors and logos and how to brand you?
design system is more of a component library, and it's supposed to speed up your work instead of maybe like setting some rules. For example, like a brand guide is also in many times thought of for print. I mean, you could do a brand guide with how buttons should look. I've seen a brand guide with buttons, but and it's printed, which is quite ironic. But the difference is that to help, it's basically just a digital brand guide.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
like-
kind of alluding to. Is
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the same thing as a digital brand guide. I mean, it's a.
And it's closer to code. And it's like,
Yeah.
Developers
Yeah.
are relying on the system so they can implement new try out new solutions at a very fast time instead of having to dig into, a design guide and then don't have the specs for it. So here, if you have, for example, a component for a slider, you can just pull that into a prototype and just test it right away. And you cannot do that from the brand.
If you take Figma out of it, take Figma out of the picture, and just think about design systems and brand guides. No matter where you store your design system, I know Figma has got a lot of features for that. But I think it's just that sort of, in my head, it's the same thing.
Is Roche working with like a digital printing agency now, or are they only working with
They are working with a printing agency like.
I'm just curious, like, are they using like this font, and are they using like the colors like the new color, like have
No, but they are.
printing
It's being pushed. It's being pushed.
Okay.
It's kind of like two design agencies. So like, but as we all know, competition, la 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 la, But yeah, it's kind of been trying to define, and I've been trying to put also brand guidelines in there, and like how you should treat the logo, especially on digital platforms. And to answer your question, like for example, the sign system should always be programmed. So it's not like, so it's basically just, hey, a button. You just copy paste a code. So it's like, that's basically, instead of saying to the programmer, hey, you should design a button with like a 50 pixels by 150. So it's like kind of also a time saver in terms of workflow.
can I add? Sorry.
Yeah.
Time management has flown out the window. But,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
but the brand guide is where the brand used to go to die, really. It's like you print it out and you put it in a drawer and you forget about it.
Yeah.
But this is more like a communication tool. What
Oh,
Figma
yeah,
has
yeah,
changed.
good,
It's
good.
like you're versioning your design and you are delivering it to developers. It's like, and like companies are working now, actually a designer can change the base color and it gets updated in the app and the website without any developer having to touch it. So it's a more of working document in a digital.
I mean, you mentioned the word digital brand guide. I mean, this is how you make sure that everything that you do is in a sort of uniform look and feel. And
It's like a brand manual on steroids or something like that. Like it's an advanced, ideation of a brand guide. But
Now you have to wrap up. soon.
yeah. I was going to show you some of the action. So yeah, for the final screens, which just the inner website, and the design was everything that's designed is thought to be really kind of personal, that we really know your needs, what you want, and so forth. Like for example, this is still in development, but this is actually AI. It's like you can actually write in there, like if it picks out the word car, it understands that you are trying to claim insurance for a car. And it understands that you're talking about yesterday or the day before. It understands that you're talking about a certain location, and it just kind of helps you going through the right direction. And it's like kind of like it understands what you are claiming. If something like your iPhone, it understands it's a phone, and that's also what we're trying to achieve. And this is what I presented to the code program. I wanted this to be in 3D, and you could like set it a little bit, and you just like slammed the doors at me, and this was the solution, but of course, like you need to compromise, like sometimes this is going to be a pain in mobile and all that kind of stuff, but at least I can have some dreams, and yeah, like this is actually missing a photo, no, missing a logo. It's not an advanced technology, but it's a little feature that it's a nice. We'll have the Toyota logo. This is information that you already know, but when you type in the car license plate, it knows that it's what kind of a car. It's like gives you this kind of a trusty feeling. But yeah, I think I need to wrap this up. And the last thing, we've been experimenting a little bit with this. This is online documentation of everything that's done in Figma. So if I change something in Figma, it changes online. So everybody can grab the code from here. For example, buttons. It has just grab the code, and it's like you can do all this kind of stuff. And it's also good also for the stakeholders to get pictures, to get logos. It's like I asked them, do you have some kind of a placement for your logo, for example? Then they go, no, we always just get emails and we just send it over. Then you can everybody has this link and they can download it. Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least, we have Brian Suda. When did we meet?
In London, when you were living in London.
2006, 7, 8?
2006 or 7.
So, I don't know.
This is the one bad side about going last. I had these all planned, and I've been listening to 45 minutes worth of talks, and I've forgotten everything I was going to say. So, we're going to wing this just like everyone else here. I don't recognize a lot of you, so I'm going to go through a little bit of an introduction about myself. As Finnur was saying, my name is Brian Suda. This is my personal website. I've been in Iceland for maybe 13, 14 years now. I've been busy the last few years, so I've kind of been out of the scene. So I'm going to give a little introduction on a bit of my background. I'm a programmer, software developer. I end up doing a lot of design, a lot of UX, but that's not necessarily my background or what I do on a day-to-day basis. When I first moved to Iceland, I was studying for a little bit and then took a job at TM Software in the Origo division. And then Origo became TM Software became Nihedi, and now it's back to Origo. And it was a lot of fun. When I was working there, I got to work on a lot of interesting large projects. We did projects for banks, and the one I'm going to show you a little while later is one that I did for Iceland Air. I guess you should say that when Finnur asked me for a name for my talk, and I didn't really know, but we settled on the web without screens. So I think a lot of the examples of the things I'm going to show you here today are how we're going to start interacting with the web, potentially without a screen, and how that's going to impact our UX and just our whole process. So after financial collapse in 2008, I wasn't working for TM Software. I was doing a little bit of my own stuff. And then I started working for a company called Cloud. We would do a lot of natural language processing. We were mostly working with companies like EVE Online. We worked with Square Enix, EA Games, video game companies. And we would go through their forums, the community forums, and try and parse out information. And it's great that you talked about some of the AI stuff. I've got a lot of that in here. What we did is we would then communicate to the community managers what topics are trending, what was important, things like that. We had a local product in Iceland called Vaktin. We were trying to crawl all the Icelandic blogs, news sites, things like that. And then, that was what, 2008, 2009, and then kind of everything has fallen behind Facebook, so it's much harder to get. Both Vaktin and Klarna were sold off. Klarna went to a company in the States called Jive. I didn't go with them. I stayed back here in Iceland and was doing some freelancing for a while. And then I ended up working for a little bit at QuizUp. I was on the data team at QuizUp, and we were there trying to figure out what are our customers doing? What are they, how are they interacting with the game? What's the retention? How are they spending money? How are they using things? How long are they there? All sorts of data. So I'm a big data guy. I think when QuizUp was finally purchased by another US company. We had, I think, over 40 million active users. So it was a lot of data to kind of troll through. After that, well, this whole time as well, I've been working on my own research company. Myself and two friends have been doing a lot of educational surveys. We do a lot of surveys for lekskole, grundskole, framhaldsskole, and now more recently we're getting into sort of staff surveys. I'm going to kind of talk about how we're doing a lot of web type of things without a screen through survey tools. But my task in this is a lot of the sort of back end, make sure the software is still running. Currently, I just sort of trade under my own company called Optional, where I do a lot of the writing and invoicing from myself. So that's why my name is there for tonight. So the first little project I want to talk about, I wrote this back in 2010 about something that happened in 2007. So that's 13, 14 years ago. And this was in the Iceland Express days. You remember Iceland Express? When I was working at TM Software, we learned that on the next Monday, Iceland Express is going to be launching print your own boarding pass. And if you remember the days when you actually had to fly, you actually had to get a physical ticket with a little magnetic strip on the back, and you had to take that with you to the airport. That was your ticket to get on the flight. But it was inevitable. Those pieces of paper with a magnetic strip on the back was like this for each one of those. And more people were flying, and the airlines realized that's just going to cost us a fortune in physical tickets. And they got the brilliant idea to push that cost onto the customer to print their own boarding passes. So it was inevitable this was going to happen. But we learned that on Monday, Iceland Express was going to do it. So we spent the week and we rushed out so Iceland Air could have it done on Friday. It'd be the first one of us. What that also meant is I was the only one who didn't really have a project at the time, so I got saddled with making a boarding pass. Did it not open up? Okay. If you actually if you Google for boarding pass designs, you get loads and loads of people who do mock-ups and designs of boarding passes. And as one of a handful of people in the world who's actually designed a boarding pass, these are beautiful, but in no way actually functional of the 4 fingers or 2 fingers? Like how, of the actual rules. So afterwards, I wrote up sort of what we had learned in the process. The IATA is the International Governing Board for these boarding passes. You actually have to be able, on any given boarding pass, to support like 9 connecting flights. So all these things about these beautifully designed boarding passes are not in the least bit practical. What we had to go on was this one from sort of SAS at the time. This is what people were doing for printable boarding passes. So we took this as our original model, and first thing we did is just mock up a sheet of paper. And everything that was highlighted here was going to be digitally inserted. So we could design an A4 sheet of paper, and then we knew which parts of that piece of paper were going to be dynamic based on your location or your name and where you were flying to. So after we did the rough paper, the paper mock-up, we started actually filling in some information. And then we started getting into this concept of hierarchy. What's the most important thing when you're going to fly? Is it the timing of the gate, the bag drop, or the actual departure time? We also started to look at a few other things. Because you could only print this 24 hours before your flights, we didn't necessarily know what gate you were going to be at. So we tried to have a box here with some affordances that was saying, when you get this and you actually know the gate, write it in this box. The other great thing, we talk about the web without a screen, is because you could only print this 24 hours in advance, and we knew where you were going, we started to sneak in some pretty innovative things. If we knew you were going to Copenhagen tomorrow, we could actually have the next 4 or 5 days weather forecast for Copenhagen. We also could do currency exchange rates, so the Icelandic kroner to the Danish kroner, to the euro, to the pound, to the dollar. So we're starting to actually imbue this piece of paper with the internet. This is another mock-up trying to figure out, Probably the flight time is the most important thing. I mean, it worked even if you dropped it on the ground, you could still read it. That was sort of the point. I don't think Icelandair was too keen on that. But one of the other things we learned, or I learned a lot about in this process, is these barcodes. In this barcode, it's basically encoded all the information on the page. So for the actual ticket takers and the people, they didn't care what any of this looked like. We could change all of that. What they were most interested in is how legible and readable these barcodes were. I mean, let's see, we even did it to where, like, most people probably fold here, and then on each page you still had the barcode. So even depending on how you folded it, it would still work. So we did a lot of thought process into this. But that came on to this concept of what are these little barcodes? This was written in 2009 when these QR codes were probably the hottest thing out there. And it's a bit ironic because back in 2009, it was probably pre-iPhone or very early iPhone days, which meant you had to have a special app on a Nokia phone, which nobody figured out how to get and download. And I still remember like seeing on the side of a bus, and you're like, oh, hang on, take out your phone, launch the app. Oh, no, it's gone. Freaking put bus.is on the side. So now, most Android and iOS phones now, you can just launch the camera app and it'll read a barcode. Now that it's absolutely so simple, they're nowhere to be seen. But like I said, I wrote this in 2009, and this is still the single longest article that I have. Google Juice I still get loads of people coming into the website just via this article. And you can do some really cool stuff with barcodes and QR codes, different types. So this was sort of 10 years ago. This was the way we could start linking our physical world back to the internet. So you could take, these pans, these coffee cups, these beer glasses, anything, stick a QR code on it, and now you've made basically a hyperlink from the real world to the digital world. So this is the first steps into this, web without a screen, connecting the physical world to the digital world. But now the QR codes are passé. We have something new, these NFC tags. If you've got a super new iPhone, and probably, I think, a few generations of the old Android phones, you can read NFC tags just by touching your phone onto it. You don't need to launch any app or anything. So this guy, and these are cheap. These are like under $1, depending on how many you order. I've got a bunch coming via Amazon, but they didn't show up before today. So I'll try and, if I come next time, bring some. Because I ordered like 100, so they were super cheap. So what he did is, this is what they are. This is a sheet of paper with a little metal coil in it, and when you touch your phone onto it, exactly like the QR codes, it'll read either a URL, and that URL could be HTTP, it could be a mail, it could be SMS, it could be a telephone. But now that all your apps on your phone allow you to deep link into them, it can also launch and run an app. And this is how things like the scooters you'll be laying around in the streets, instead of taking a picture of the QR code, you can just tap your phone on it. It'll launch the app, you hit rent, and you're off and running on the scooter. But this is the sticker that he's got. He's painted it up. He's got it on his house. So now, all that does is when it taps on there, the RFID reader in the phone runs the shortcut app. That shortcut app then runs things on his phone, which then turn on the lights and unlock his front door. So simply walking up to the house and touching your phone, it automate loads and loads of things. And then I think he's got another one on the other side of the pole, so when he's leaving, he can tap and it turns everything off and locks the doors. So this is now the new hip way to start to connect our physical world to our digital world via our phones. Moving on a little bit, this is a project we did, still sort of ongoing. We've been courting Disney for some VR projects for, I don't know, at least 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years. And we want to do some VR projects with them. And there was a sort of pop-up VR movie theater in LA. And they had a website where you could book tickets. And I think they had 15-minute intervals. So you would pick whichever VR experience you wanted to see, and then pick the time, and then when that ticket was gone, the website would say sold out. So me, being a little programmer and data guy, rather than using the screen and looking at all this, I would save a copy of the HTML, the website, every 15 minutes. And then every night, I would go through and figure out which titles were sold at which times. Then we can start, once it's in your database, you can start making all these nice tables. And now we get to the screen part. But up until now, I've done everything via the web, scraping this data without a screen. And we can see things like the Star Wars VR experience was only sold out about 25% of the time, but made about $30,000. And the average person bought a ticket 20 hours in advance, almost a day before. Whereas you've got the John Wick Chronicles, it was sold out about 50% of the time, it made about the same amount of money, and people would buy something about 13, 14 hours in advance. So whenever you have your startup ideas or you're pitching your company, you say like, after 1 year, we're going to make $1 million in revenue. And after 3 years, we're going to make $10 million in revenue. And everyone just says, yeah, okay, whatever, it's a startup. No one knows sort of what the projections are. So when we would go to Disney and we'd say, we can promise you we'll make you $20 million in the next year. They're like, it's not going to happen. Then we pull out our numbers. They're like, okay, now you've got something to talk about. We're actually backing up all of our claims with the real data. So the one thing we built for them was a really simple calculator. I know last time you had Matadora, her husband has got a company called Grid.is. I've redone this since in Grid, it's way easier. But you go into a meeting with somebody and say, what if we made the tickets $25? All of a sudden, they're going to make $40 million. They're like, well, what if we can do 5 shows an hour instead of 4? Now we just made another $10 million. And then you're like, well, we've got a pretty good marketing team. What if we can get 75% sellout? And then we start playing with these numbers. People, their eyes really light up with dollar signs, and they can figure it out. And when you back this up with real data, because we know how well the other companies are doing, they can start to extrapolate, we've got in 1 store, how many stores, how much money we're going to make in a year and a half. Really opens a lot more opportunities. How are we doing on time? The next sort of big wave that we're looking into in interacting with the web without a screen is voice. I don't know how many people might have some sort of smart speaker at home. I've got one, and it sounds like it's such a great idea, but it's a complete, I wouldn't say failure, but the workflow is very different than a laptop. Laptop, you can do 5 things at once, you can multitask. With voice, it's fairly linear. You have to wait till things are done, then you can respond and do it again. And we think it's sort of this new concept, but anytime you call the bank, they're like, press 1 for customer service, press 2 for, debit cards. You're already in some sort of voice sort of phone tree. So even though these sort of voice UI concepts are hot right now, it's not necessarily a new thing. You talked about the insurance company taking AI, parsing things. IBM's expected that chatbots can reduce customer service costs by 30%. I don't have the stat, but I'm pretty sure it was Alibaba in China. It was something like 95% of all of their customer service claims are first answered by AI. And then they get routed to a human being. And if they didn't have that AI layer, it would be impossible for them to have enough staff just to answer the questions. Now, that great thing about the chat service is whether you're typing it in or saying it on the phone, that interaction is the same. There doesn't need to be a screen there. You are saying something, it is understanding it, and then replying. So when we can start to think about these abstractions, you don't necessarily need to think about it as a screen. You can start doing it. If you build it for a chatbot, it already probably works for something like Alexa. We've been using a company called Twilio. They're a great company. They work in Iceland. It's $5 and you can rent a phone number. And then from there you can send SMSs, receive SMSs, you can receive phone calls, you can actually make phone calls. So that's one of the things we've been experimenting with all of our survey tools. These people have opted in to take their survey. So we send them an email with a link saying, please go take your survey. If they don't take the survey after a few days, we send them an SMS. If they still don't take the survey, we send them another email, And then finally, we've got this new thing we've tested just this month about Robo Calls. So now
It's Skålapus.
yeah,
Yeah.
starts on the person, slow person.
Yeah.
And now, maybe some of you have gotten on one of our, if you have children in school, you might have gotten our robocall. But it is an Icelandic voice explaining, please do this. And we've got a sort of decision tree. You press 1 for English, and then press 2. We'll look up the email we have on file and send you more information. So you can do a lot of programmatic things via the voice service. We can send, because of this as well, we can do, I think, about 2,000 calls per hour at about 10 kroners per call. And I think someone like Gallup is probably paying a human being 400 kroners per phone call. So we are not only, we're taking 2 zeros off the cost and a max, a lot more people, a lot more phone calls per hour as well. So a lot of interesting things around that. In about 2 weeks, I've got a conference that I'm helping co-organize where we're looking at sort of the internet as if it were a physical material. So rather than trying to learn CSS, learn JavaScript, learn this thing, it's more about what if we actually think about the web as if it were a block of wood. We know what we can do with wood, how far we can bend it. We know in an abstract way, what we can do with these things. What if we start thinking about digital in the same way? And if we do that, maybe we can make new products and new ideas off the back of it. Last year, we had a lady who works for Google. She was on the team who was designing part of the Jacquard project. And what they do is it's this little tiny Bluetooth box here, which connects with your phone, and then that connects with the clothing, the jacket, the backpack, stuff like that. And the use case originally was commuters. So if you're riding your bike to work, now the Bluetooth thing is connected to your phone, or your coat, your jacket, is connected to your phone, and there are metallic threads woven in throughout this jacket. So now, if you get a phone call, you can literally just swipe your coat, swipe your jacket to dismiss the call. Or if you're lost, maybe you double tap your coat, and in your headphones it tells you, make a left up here, make a right up here. So here we're beginning to do a lot of interactions, UX interactions, without a screen. So I guess to wrap it up, if your whole background is dependent on dealing with the screen or looking at the UI, and you've spent all your time to figure out if it does it look nice on mobile, the tablet, the big screen, that's still going to be important. But if you kind of remember 10 years ago, everyone laughed at like, oh, phones are so crap. We won't be browsing the web on our phones. It's such a horrible and miserable experience. And now we spend more time on our phone than we do our desktop. I would venture to guess in 10 years, we'll probably have more interactions with the web via small devices, things without screens like your coat, your jacket, your purse, your wallet, than you do with devices with screens. The percentage of time you spend on the screen probably won't change, but your interactions with the web in general will. So if you're not preparing yourself for these types of things, you should start. Thank you very much.
Questions? Yeah.
Like the project with the jacket, because most of what we've been talking is design is what a button looks or color or scheme, color scheme or something. But I'm thinking like with the jacket, the designer came up with it probably was looking at people riding a bike and seeing that, oh, they're riding a bike, so they're looking at what people need.
Mm-hmm.
So like ethnography is like really going out there, because that's why I was asking before if the site is like, because user experience is like the user.
Yeah,
I was trying to wait for that kind of, how are we working here in Iceland, looking at the user and what he needs.
Yeah, the other. Let's see, where was it?
It's actually something I wanted at the last time. It's like, how many of you have done a user interview yourselves? Show of hands. It's like, I think it's less than you think. And I think Iceland is one of the reasons for setting up this meetup. It's like getting us closer to what's going on out there, because I was actually hiring people in Sweden for a product manager, I got like 6 different profiles of UX researchers and UX testers and UX this and UX that. While in Iceland we just design stuff.
Yeah, that's why I've been listening to a lot of design, and I'm thinking more of design thinking and about user experience.
When we decided to roll this series off, the first example I thought about was this airline ticket. Because when we were working together, eons ago, this was one of the first examples to my mind where, hey, let's not just open up Photoshop, create a ticket, and print it. It's like Brian introduced me to a lot of this. Let's try to drop it on the floor so you can read it. So this is one of my go-to stories. Thank you for bringing it live. So yeah, I think it's happening, but it's going slow.
This really reminds me of what game instruments are doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of like do this exactly when they're on a bike, it was controlling the music by tapping, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, Nina, who did the presentation, called these udder charts because they look like a cow's udder. And it was, when you start with a very minimal, because the threads are woven into the coat in this case, in I think stripes. So you can only do so many, parallel, perpendicular, up, down, tap. So at the moment, we're still in the very early days. So we have to first develop the language of how we interact, and then once we do that, we can figure out the bigger system. So I think them, use case boxing that into, commuting with basically 4 functions made it easier for them to move forward, I guess.
Like with the car, before it was having the radio, but now you have it like when you're sitting there and then designing in the car, you can do it
Now voice?
It's a process.
I'm trying to get one of the Volvo designers to visit us. He works on the UX of Volvo dashboard car design. Hopefully he will be with us in the coming months.
Yeah, and we want to have gated instruments too, so if anybody of you have a good connection, we're very happy to have them here as well.
But now it's beer time and chat, so mingle, talk about UX. See you next month.